Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Sober Life Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Jones, coming to you right here from the Sober Life Studios, brought to you by One Brother, One Sister. And we have a great guest. This is somebody that I talked to, I think it was maybe last summer sometime that we had a chance to go on and do a show together. This is Royce Dockrill, who is the CEO of Valiant Recovery. Royce, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Just 2 seconds here to being
there you go.
And all this fun stuff. Give me 2 seconds. This is a bad time to have to do this, but change my focus. There we go. That should hopefully
fix that'll work. That'll work. Royce, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, Scott?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It was a crazy 2025. Looking forward to 2026 and hoping things will be a little better for me, but for everybody, obviously. Valiant Recovery. You're talking. There's one right here in Punta Gorda, Florida. Is that? I'm not saying that right. How do you say it?
Punta Gorda.
Punta Gorda.
Yeah.
Okay. Punta Gorda, Florida, which is just. It's kind of like right between Tampa and Fort Myers. It's right in the middle there.
Correct. Yeah.
Over there. How long has Valiant been around, man?
So that location, we're just coming into our 5th year. But as an organization with our other locations, we've been 15 years now.
And your other locations are all in Canada, is that correct?
They are, yeah. We have 3 locations up in Canada.
I got to ask, what was the thought that, hey, let's go into the United States and do this? Was there a reason or a personal draw down here?
We actually, my wife and I bought a winter place down here 2007, 2008. So a few years before we started doing treatment. And so treatment was actually kind of birthed out of our experiences down here and meeting people and different things. So long, short answer there, but
but you talking to people, so you figured there was a need for what you had, because there are treatment centers down here, but everybody's got their own vision, I think, right?
For sure, yeah. And it wasn't necessarily treatment down here in Florida. It was treatment in Canada first, and then after things got established in Canada, then it offered us the opportunity to then expand into the U.S. because the financial support was there and everything.
Excellent. And there is a sizable Canadian population in Florida.
There is, yeah, in the winters.
At least part of the year. At least part of the year.
Yeah.
No, that's terrific. And like I said, there are a lot of treatment centers in Florida. However, they're all very specific in what they do, and more importantly, their vision and how they see things. What is the vision behind Valiant Recovery?
For us, we want to try and keep things fairly small. We don't really have a desire to become a big giant conglomerate. We like to keep things individualized, and we like to be able to offer a full continuum of care within our company so that we know from start to finish what individuals are learning, what they've addressed in their own situation in their life, and what still's left to resolve, as opposed to bouncing around through different levels of care at different organizations and always having to start from scratch on educating everybody who you are and what you've been struggling with and what your life experiences have been. We just find that for us that it provides some really good results that way, because we're able to just stay continuous with everything.
I really like that, the follow through from beginning to end, and that also builds trust. It builds confidence in what you're doing. Like you said, if you got to every few weeks, you got to start over somewhere. That's difficult. I also have to ask you about you mentioned the size. You like to keep it a little bit smaller. So when you're talking about Valiant, you're not talking about one of these places where you're going to walk in, there's 100 people, and you become a number.
Yeah,
right?
No, I mean, some of our programs we take as little as 5 people maximum, and the location in Florida is licensed for 20 beds, but okay. We're still newer, and so it's still a bit quieter. So the patients get the advantage of that slow time because they get more individual time from staff. And
well, I was just thinking that, and that's a good point, because with some of these larger population facilities, I'm not saying that they don't do their best to try to do a good job, but the logistics of it, you just can't see people when you need them. And you know as well as I do, and probably everybody else out listening, you cannot schedule crises. I cannot say I got to wait until next Tuesday to have my crisis. And with
Yeah,
a smaller population, you can address things quicker, can't you?
for sure. Yeah. And because it's a smaller population, we get to know them, on a more personal level, not just their name, but like getting to know their actual mood and, a day-to-day basis. Because in a big center, I think it would be a win for me if I could keep everybody's name straight. So
I know I'm terrible with names, but you really do get to build bonds with people. And you're the CEO, and are you one of the founders of Valiant as well, or the
yeah,
founder?
my wife and I founded it.
All right, you're the founders.
Yeah.
But you don't just sit in an office and then disappear and do all. You're very hands on with your staff, with the clients, with the whole operation, aren't you?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that
this
personally
week I'm
important to
doing
you?
intake calls. That's why we got interrupted earlier, right? But so yeah, no, it's always been that way. I mean, we like to know what's going on, and we've always been very hands-on that way.
Have you been able to build yourself personally? Again, as CEO, it's usually not something that would happen, but do you get to build personal relationships with some of your clients as well?
I do some. I mean, obviously, I'm not in the center all the time, so I don't see them that much. But I mean, certainly when I'm doing intake calls and stuff, I build some rapport, and there's almost an expectation that you get to meet the individual you talk to on the phone, which is nice in this situation because I am here and present. Whereas some of our other locations, the intake person is handling multiple locations, and so she doesn't always get to meet the people she talks with. But I do get the luxury of meeting the clients and popping in every now and then and saying hi and keeping up with them. So
I imagine there's been times, and I'm just guessing, but where you've been like, I cannot believe the change that I'm seeing in some of these people. Do you get that every once in a while where you're like, it's almost like, even though you see it over and over again, it still kind of shocks you how much people can change.
yeah, I think the biggest change we see is obviously the clients that are there longer,
Yeah.
because it allows us to deal with more of the underlying issues that they've been struggling with their whole life, right? And so, individuals that are there 90 days and sometimes even more, those ones I see the biggest change because they came in, and maybe they were in a health crisis with their body shutting down and all of these different things. But then by the end of it, you see the jaundice coming out of their eyes and their skin and all of that sort of stuff, and their mobility coming back, and they're cognizant and everything compared to when they walked in the door. It was, you were wondering if what they were going to get out of program, right? So you can see some pretty cool stories. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's great. It's after 5 years, I imagine you probably got a whole busload of ideas or thoughts about people and how they've changed. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Is your wife and you? You said you guys kind of like developed this. Is she involved as well as you?
Yeah, she's as involved as I am. Yeah, she just handles different areas. But yeah, we're day to day in and out. So,
Yeah. Well,
and because it's 3 shifts a day, I mean, it's nonstop, right? I mean, we've got 3 shifts of staff contacting us every day with questions from, 3 and 4 locations around the country, right? So,
well, I know, and I'm not sure people realize just 24/7. This is what you're operating.
yeah,
It doesn't. If a client's got a crisis at 3 in the afternoon or 3 in the morning, it's got to be dealt with the same way. So,
yeah,
and you end up being those phone calls every once in a while.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and I'm sure it's probably not always fun to get those in the middle of the night, and you probably, it could be a moment. But do you ever regret going into this business?
Well, there are moments.
I love the honesty. I love the honesty because it's not an easy business to operate in. I mean, between the
No, yeah,
regulations, the insurance payouts, and then dealing with all of these crises and having that responsibility of people's lives, that's a lot of pressure, my friend.
and they're all changing landscapes, right? I mean, the client population is a changing landscape in amongst themselves. Each person's a changing landscape, and then the insurance and the regulation is constantly changing, and you're having to adapt and shift and correct and adjust, and and that yeah, so there's always something keeping you on your toes. But the clients as much as anything, because I mean, you could be pushing on a nerve that day and dealing with a topic that's really not comfortable, and they're looking for the door, or they're acting out, and so then you got to sit down with them and work through those moments.
And again, that's kind of the advantage of having smaller populations, is that when somebody starts to have these issues, they don't fade into the background. They don't, because everybody can be seen and observed, and that's really, really important. I think a lot of people think clients come in and they're just being defiant because they want to be defiant, but what they're actually doing is just reacting to everything around them because they're scared or they're trying to protect themselves. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty valid statement. The other thing is if they want to be quiet and just ignore everything and be the quiet person in the back of a room, if you've got 20, 30 people in a group session and it's more like a classroom, it's hard to remember who engaged and who was paying attention and that sort of thing. But when it's only 5 or 10 people sitting in a group session, and we kind of do ours in a living room more or less, sitting on couches for a lot of them, and so it's laid back. It's like a family group discussion almost, and so it's easy to get people involved and open up and talking about each of the topics throughout the day.
Well, I also noticed that you do a lot of varied programming as well, including things like art and other things. And is that specifically designed to make sure that you have something that'll interest everybody?
Yeah, that's part of it. But I mean, art therapy specifically is really good when we're dealing with traumas, because it kind of keeps your brain distracted while you can kind of talk and open up about things, so that it opens up, compartments of your brain that are otherwise shut off from analytical thinking and all of that sort of stuff, right? So it's kind of like EMDR in that way, where it unlocks different doors to our brain that we can deal with the different things behind those doors and then continue moving forward.
And sometimes when people can't, they could speak through their art as well, as to put their pain either in paint or in markers or whatever you're using for your art.
Or subconsciously even.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives people outlets for creativity and for pain, which I think is brilliant. Now, you said 5 years you've existed here in Florida, in Punta Gorda. What about the overall Valiant? How long has it been with the Canada contingency too?
End of 2009, beginning of 2010, so 15 years.
15 years. Have you seen the industry change in 15 years? Has there been things that have changed?
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes, some good, some bad, certainly. I think the country and society as a whole is becoming more open and accepting of individuals, and recognizing that, lots of people struggle, and it's not necessarily a character flaw or a character defect that's brought them to this point, but there's underlying traumatic events or biological markers that have brought them to this place and that sort of thing. So that stuff is really good.
And I think people's perception in the public has started to change. The stigma is not the same as it was. Now, there still is, obviously, there's some judgment, but it's not as bad as it was. You believe that?
Yeah, no, I think that's improved a lot. I wish parity and insurance was following quite as long as it's supposed to, but but even that's improved. But still, there's still room for improvement there.
Well, the numbers of deaths, unfortunate deaths, the number of overdoses, the number of incarcerations, and all of those things continues to go up. The insurance participation continues to go down, which does not match. And then we introduced something, especially in these last 15 years, we saw the introduction of things like fentanyl hitting the market and changing the face and the urgency of helping people with addiction. Are there new strategies in dealing with things like fentanyl that had to come about, or was it just try to stay the course and hopefully ride it out?
I mean, in the inpatient setting, it's a little different because I mean, there's some protection from the elements and
Yeah.
outside issues and stuff. So as long as we conduct our initial search upon coming in and making sure people are not bringing anything in with them, then that part we've been pretty safe with. Once people are exiting and leaving, I mean, certainly things like naltrexone and Vivitrol are potentially life-saving for many people struggling with the fentanyl, but not everybody wants to go on those things.
Right. Well, that
But
actually
even
brings.
even those are a lot better though than like the methadones, and even Suboxone's kind of a middle ground there. But those things have certainly improved things, and I think naloxone itself has become difficult because they've kind of made it a part of using now. Like it's just a fact of life. People carry it in their back pocket and use it multiple times a week.
Yeah, people out that are listening, you may know it better by Narcan, is what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
And you're right. It's some people see it as, well, that's a crutch where they don't believe. Listen, as long as I got Narcan, I'm going to be okay. It doesn't matter if I use too much or if I do this or do that. And that's unfortunately that's a false sense of security, because there's times when that doesn't even work. But
it definitely saves lives though. But yeah, it's just once it becomes your mentality that, I won't die, then it removes some of the fear even. Not that when you're in your addiction and it's in the driver's seat that fear is even a consequence anyways, but
the self-preservation, the line gets moved because you believe you're going to be okay. Now you'd brought up the other things like Vivitrol and the Suboxone and other things.
Really quick here, I'm listening though.
Sure. Well, what I wanted to bring up is there's been a real big trend moving people towards medication-assisted treatment or MAT treatment.
Yeah.
Is that something that Valiant participates in? And
we
how do you
do
feel
participate in MAT when it's combined with programming. So if they're in our program, whether that's in the inpatient setting or the outpatient setting, we do encourage that. I don't like it as a replacement for treatment where people just think, I'll go on MAT and then, everything will be all right. But they're not really addressing any of the underlying why reasons behind their using. And so it's a life-saving intervention at that point. But most of the time it's not solving any problems.
So that would be a sense where they're using it more for harm reduction than it is for actual getting better. But a lot of people have the misconception that, MAT is just bad all the way around. There is legitimate use, and like you mentioned, combined with therapies, there is a way it should be used, and you fully support that, correct?
For sure. Yeah. If someone needs to be on MAT for 6 months, a year, several years till they're confident in their tool belt and ready to to take the training wheels off, sort of, right? But it's a good backup. It does protect you, right? So
absolutely. It's just there. I would love if there was one answer, Royce, where we could say if everybody did this, they would all be fine. But the problem is that you have 10 different people. Most likely you're going to have 10, although they might be similar, they are still different paths to recovery. Isn't that right?
For sure. Yeah.
So everybody needs a little something. You need to kind of look at that. And if MAT might not be your cup of tea, but it might be what's entirely necessary for somebody else. One of the other things we've seen, especially in these last 15 years, is also the acknowledgement of the connection between addictions, alcoholism, and mental health. And that's almost a standard now that we understand that they go hand in hand. Is that part of your philosophy as well? Do you understand that at Valiant?
Yeah, we've always been a co-occurring disorder program. So, I mean, we've always treated addiction primary with underlying mental health. I mean, even if it's just anxiety or depression, but prior to COVID, I think, probably 70% of individuals that came in for substance use were struggling with mental health of some sort. I think post COVID, I think that number's gone up a lot. I would say almost everybody, is struggling with a little bit of some post COVID mental health lingering.
Well, it's hard to exist an addicted life without experiencing trauma or anxiety or depression or those things. Trauma is a big one though, and I'm sure you're seeing that a lot. Some people go too far, I believe, Royce, where they say trauma is the cause of all addictions, and I'm like, well, that might be taking it too far. But I do believe they go hand in hand, and you could see it in almost every case. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. Whether it's an initial trauma that brought on substance use and self-medicating, or whether it's trauma developed through the self-medicating and use, it further contributes to just digging in those roots of addiction, right? So yeah, no, absolutely.
I want to ask you about something that I think is probably the most important thing in a treatment setting, which is dignity, respect to the clients. Is that part of your philosophy to make sure that they're treated with dignity and respect and
For
not
sure.
made to feel like they're less than, correct?
Yeah, I mean, a non-judgmental approach is absolutely necessary, right? I mean, there are certainly times when you need to call somebody out on something if they're, you know, not being truthful in a group or something, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it in a respectful manner. But everybody's got their own viewpoints on life, and whether that viewpoint lines up and matches what yours does, or it doesn't even seem like it's in touch with reality. The reality is, if something they experienced caused them to even feel that way, that's a reality in their head, and that's a reality to them. And so you have to acknowledge that in order to be able to move forward with them, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's very difficult to lift yourself up when you feel that you're being put down, and these people are not the result of what's happened to them. They can't be.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we put dignity back into treatment. The Valiant is striving to be the best it can be. Do you have plans for? Have you talked about? Hey, what's the next step? Is it let's just continue to improve what we're doing, or is there something in the works maybe down the road for you and your wife sitting around just saying, "Hey, let's do this now"?
Yeah, we've always got things on the back burner, but it really just depends on how smoothly things are going and how things are going as far as if there's a wait list somewhere, and maybe we need to look at expanding, whether that's in that city or the next community over, or those sorts of things. But yeah, that's kind of how we've grown where we are, right? It's
Yeah.
gauge the intake calls and the demand and where things are coming from and the need, and if we have the ability to try and help meet that need, then we do that. But
So you again in Florida at your treatment center, Punta Gorda, for Valiant Recovery, male and female. Any restrictions, age or anything like that? Obviously, as
as
long as
long as
they're
it's an
adult.
adult, so I mean anywhere from 18 to 70, 80, right? So we're in a retirement community, so our demographic can go a little higher than some of the other areas. But
Well, that's okay. I mean, that's again, that's a need that needs to be filled, and
absolutely.
there's
Yeah.
and sometimes people like to be with a little bit older clients or something like
Yeah,
that.
and we find that even when you get people who are 18 and people who are 75 in the same building in the same group, the relationship is a little different. They connect on different points. It tends to be more like a grandparent, grandchild situation, but still it gives them perspective on, hey, this is how maybe my grandparents are viewing me as my addiction, or vice versa, for the grandparent to go, okay, maybe that's how my grandkids have been seeing me all these years, right? So it gives you some perspective and that
Yeah.
sort of stuff, but it also gives you, for the younger person to go, oh man, if I can get my life together now, I don't have to go through all the different years of struggles that they went through. And, you know, in the same in reverse, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
I've still got time. I can turn that around and rebuild those relationships with my grandkids, my children, you know, all of that sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, I guess there's something to be gained from both sides,
For
certainly.
sure. Yeah.
You know,
Everybody's got something to contribute, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I usually don't go into areas that you wouldn't cover yourself, but this is one of the things that with all the treatment centers and all the different treatment programs that we see out there, it seems like there's a real disparity in what's available for adolescents. I'm just asking your opinion on that. There's not that much. Is it because it's just too difficult to deal with? Is it that hard? Or, I mean, any theory you might have would help me with this.
I mean, I think there are probably many aspects to that one, but I mean, certainly when you're dealing with adolescents, the younger they are, the less brain development's going on. So there are some challenges there because, you know, with some of them, there's just no rationalizational skills going on yet, right? And so
Good point.
that makes challenges. Once you start serving a population that's of that age, now you've got to look at guardianship paperwork, and you know, now there's a serious level of, if this person goes missing, you know, as opposed to an adult, there's extra stuff that goes along with that. I know I have some friends that do adolescent treatment, and you know, they've come under some scrutiny because, you know, some person at a newspaper somewhere heard about a person who got abused in a boot camp in, you know, in deep in the Midwest or something. And, you know, so they're going to like champion for all the people that got hurt. And, but unfortunately they just go and undermine all kinds of good centers. And so, but because it's a really vulnerable age group and it's a vulnerable population, you know, there is extra scrutiny, and rightfully so in certain situations, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
I
then
could see that.
you've got a schooling education component that you've got to like integrate into this, as
Right.
well as the mental health, substance abuse, you know, all of those things. And it tends to be a longer program, like a 1 year, which then, I mean, now you get into expense wise, it gets very expensive to have a young person in a program for that amount of time. And if you don't have insurance that will cover that, it's, you know,
Yeah.
it certainly leaves a lot of holes for people who need the help, but can't find it because there isn't a program, or can't access it because of cost, or, you know, all of those things.
Royce, you made great points, and I appreciate you just talking about it with me, because it's something that bothers me. But at the same time, I do understand that high risk, all of those things. If you know somebody who's got a problem, who is an adolescent, individual therapies are just the first thing you should think about, I think. You know, because it's readily available. It can be done very simply, things like that. Royce, hey, listen, I'm going to be over at your place in a couple of weeks, and you know, we're going to be doing a training over there. So that's at the end of
February. Going to be good.
What's that?
That's going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So One Brother, One Sister will be over at Valiant Recovery. If anybody's interested, and who is over in the Punta Gorda, Tampa, Fort Myers area, anywhere up in there, and you want to attend, then reach out to us right here at One Brother, One Sister, and you can go 87. I forgot the number. I just did total blank on the number. Tell you what, just email us right here. Email Scott at One Brother, One Sister if you'd like some information about training at Valiant at the end of February. Just let us know. Royce, I appreciate you taking some time and talking with us today.
Yeah, no, it's always good to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to a great, successful year, and I know you guys are doing well over there. I'm just going to ask, family good? Everybody's happy? Everybody's healthy?
Yeah, everybody's doing good. Kids are doing well and starting to get some secondary education stuff going on. So.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Rush, you're a good quality person. I know that your family is very good quality people, and Valiant is, without a doubt, one of the better treatment centers right here in Florida, certainly possibly in the United States. You have to check it out. I want to ask you one more thing. We'll close with this. If somebody's interested in learning about you guys, and it's really easy to go on a website, but you know what? Anybody could put a picture on a website. Anybody could say anything. How do they make sure that you're the right cup of tea? Do you want them to call? Do you want them to stop in? What do you want
I
to do?
think a phone call gets a lot of questions addressed in a short period of time, and then we can go into depth on questions as opposed to just quick pat answers over a text or a email or something. So I mean, preferably it gives them a good feeling for us and what we do, as well as we get to kind of pre-qualify individuals to make sure that we're the right level of care for what they're even looking for.
That's it. And of course, you can go to valiantrecovery.com and your numbers are all there. Go ahead.
Yep. So valiantrecovery.com would be the Canadian ones, but valiantrecovery.us would be the US ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you end up with the wrong one, it says on there. You can click on it.
There's links to get you to the other one. Yeah.
But again, Royce, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you for having us
on the Sober Life Podcast. I look forward to seeing you and your people very shortly. And for all of you out there, please, if you know somebody who's got an issue, or if you suspect maybe you have an issue, what you want to do is you want to reach out to somebody like Royce. You want to reach out to Valiant Recovery, talk to them about it. You know what? Maybe you don't have a problem, but wouldn't you rather know just by talking to somebody first, and then you got a solution right there that's ready for you? The only bad question is the one you forget to ask. So please call, talk to them, get to know them a little bit, and help me in supporting what they're doing to help our communities and our families to get better. Royce, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
And everyone out there, you've been watching Sober Life Podcast right here from the Sober Life Studios, brought to you by One Brother, One Sister. We'll catch you next time.